Hi, my name is Robert, and I go to Skagit Valley College, and I'm going to be reading Jaws by Peter Benchley. Chapter 1. The great fish moved silently through the night water. Propelled by short sweeps of its crescent tail, the mouth was open just enough to permit a rush of water over the gills. There was little other emotion and occasional correction of the apparently aimless course by the slight raising or lowering of a pectoral fin. As a bird changes directions by dipping one wing and lifting the other, the eyes were slightless in the black, and the other senses transmitted nothing extraordinary to the small primitive brain. The fish might have been asleep, save for the moment dictated by countless millions of years of instinctive continuity, lacking of flotation, bladder common to other fish, and the fluttering flap to push oxygen bearing water through its gills. It survived only by moving. Once stopped, it would sink to the bottom and die of anoxia. The land seemed almost as dark as the water, for there was no moon. All that separated the sea shore was a long straight stretch of beach, so white that it shone. From a house behind the grass-splotched dunes, light cast yellow glimmers on the sand. The front door to the house opened, and a man and a woman stepped out into the wooden porch. They stood a moment staring at the sea, embraced quickly, and scampered down the few steps onto the sand. The man was drunk, and he stumbled onto the bottom step. The woman laughed and took his hand, and together they ran to the beach. First they swim, said the woman, to clear your head. Forget my head, said the man. Giggling, he fell backward to the sand, pulling the woman down with him. They fumbled with each other's clothing, twined limbs around limbs, and thrashed with urgent odor on the cold sand. Afterward, the man lay back and closed his eyes. The woman looked at him and smiled. Now, how about that swim, she said. You go ahead. I'll wait for you here. The woman rose and walked to where the gentle surf washed over her ankles. The water was colder than the night air, for it was only mid-June. The woman called back, Are you sure you don't want to come? But there was no answer from the sleeping man. She backed up a few steps, then ran at the water. At first, her strides were long and graceful, but then a small wave crashed into her knees, and she faltered, regained her footing, and flung herself over the step, waist-high wave. The water was only up to her hips, so she stood, pushed the hair out of her eyes, and continued walking until the water covered her shoulders. There she began to swim with the jerky head above water stroke of the untutored. 100 yards offshore, a fish sensed the change in the sea's rhythm. It did not see the woman, nor yet did it smell her. Running within the length of its body were a series of thin carnals filled with mucus and dotted with nerve endings. And these nerves detected vibrations and signaled the brain. The fish turned toward the shore. The woman continued to swim from the beach, stopped now and then to check her position by the lights that moved up and down the beach. But she was tiring, so she rested for a moment, treading the water, then started for the shore. The vibrations were stronger now, and the fish recognized prey. The sweeps of the tail quickened, thrusting the giant body forward with a speed that irrigated the tiny phosphorescent animals in the water, caused them to glow, casting a mantle of sparks over the fish. The fish closed on the woman and hurtled past a dozen feet to the side and 6 feet below the surface. The woman felt only a wave of pressure that seemed to lift her up in the water and ease her down again. She stopped swimming and held her breath. Feeling nothing further, she resumed her lurching stroke. The fish smelled her now, and the vibrations, erratic and sharp, signaled distress. The fish began to circle close to the surface. Its dorsal fin broke water, and its tail thrashing back and forth cut the glassy surface with a hiss. A series of tremors shook its body. For the first time, the woman felt fear, though she did not know why. Adrenaline shot through her trunk and her limbs, generating a tingling heat and urging her to swim faster. She guessed that she was 50 yards from the shore. She could see the line of the white foam where the waves broke on the beach. She saw the lights in the house, and for a comforting moment, she thought she saw someone pass by one of the windows. The fish was about 40 feet away from the woman, off to the side when it turned suddenly to the left. Dropped entirely below the surface, and with two quick thrusts of its tail, was upon her. At first, the woman thought she had snagged her leg on a rock or a piece of floating wood. There was no initial pain, only one violent tug on her right leg. She reached down, touched her foot, treading water with her left leg to keep her head up. Feeling in the blackness with her left hand, she could not find her foot. She reached higher on her leg, and then she was overcome by a rush of nausea and dizziness. Her groping fingers had found a nub of bone and tattered flesh. She knew that the warm, pulsing flow over her fingers in the chill water was her own blood. Pain and panic struck together. The woman threw her head back and screamed a guttural cry of terror. The fish had moved away. It swallowed the woman's limb without chewing. Bones and meat passed down the massive gullet in a single spasm. Now the fish turned again, homing on the stream of blood flushing from the woman's femoral artery, a beacon as clear true as the lighthouse on a cloudless night. This time the fish attacked from below. It hurled up the woman's jaws agape. The great conical head struck her like a locomotive, knocking her up out of the water. The jaws snapped around her torso, crushing bones and flesh organs into a jelly. The fish, with the woman's body in its mouth, smashed down on the water with a thunderous splash, spewing foam and blood and phosphorescence in a gaudy shower. Sorry, I was like in my zone, son.